Once again, we're saying thank you so much and good morning, Africa. Well, it is indeed the second half, if you want to put it that way, as we keep track of the latest happenings at the ongoing elections taking place in Kenya. I'm Joe Hanson, and of course, I'm joined by
Olive Emodi. Good morning. It's a pleasure and a delight to be broadcasting live here, keeping you up to date with all the information you need as regards Kenya's elections. And of course, we have a guest in studio. We'll get to introduce you to our guest in a moment. But it's important to let you know that Kenya's long-awaited elections have kicked off across the nation, with millions queuing across with over 30,000 polling stations. The country's third elections under the new constitution will see Kenyans vote for outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta's successor after the end of his 10-year term. Now, joining us to explore these conversations further, we have in studio with us Rickson Mubarak. He is a political analyst, and he'll be joining us to go even further. Good morning, Rickson. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rickson. Thank you so much for being here. First of all, how does it feel like being a Kenyan right now?
I feel like it's a blessed day. It's a day of history. We are waiting to see what's happening, and every Kenyan, wherever he is excited.
He's asked you how it feels to be a Kenyan. I'll ask you, how does it feel to be in Nigeria?
Nigeria is great. But I still feel today as a Kenyan, I feel like I'm in Kenya.
Interesting indeed.
Most importantly, we'll want to say that you can also join us in the conversation. Later on, we'll let you know how you can also be part of it as well. In the meantime, we're not just going to be joined by Rickson, who's here live in the studios. We also have joining us Declan Galvin, who's also here with us. Thank you so much, Declan, for being here. He is indeed Head of Insight, Information and Intelligence at WS Insight. Good morning to you, Declan.
Good morning.
Good morning, Declan. What's it like in Nairobi this morning?
Well, so I think, first off, it's a bit cold. And so you're hearing a lot of that kind of chatter online and through people at polling stations. But aside from the weather, overall, things are fairly orderly. And that's pretty much what we expected. The overwhelming majority of polling stations and queues across the country will be orderly, and people will move through the voting process as expected. But of course, there's a lot of other issues that crop up. Certainly, there's delays, and we would expect that there's more angst and concern around delays that will be kind of announced over the next couple hours, just because that's, polling has just opened a few hours ago.
Quite interesting, I must say. Well, just in case you're joining us right now, I want to say welcome. We are indeed keeping abreast with the latest happenings right there in Kenya as they continue to make their decisions today. But let's quickly take a look at the polling units, some of them, most importantly, as the presidential aspirants indeed went ahead to cast their votes. We'll be right back and bring to you more information. But first, let's take a look.
Of campaigning and speaking to the people of Kenya and selling our agenda and our manifesto and having discussions across the country. This morning, it's D-Day, and we have come to vote with my wife and my neighbors and the people in this community. As you have all seen, everybody here wants a peaceful process. We even have had a spontaneous prayer, and that prayer was all about having a peaceful election. So I'm very happy that this morning the exercise of choosing the next leaders of Kenya for the next 5 years is now underway, not just here, but everywhere in Kenya. I want to ask all voters like myself to do this exercise, go vote peacefully and intentionally and deliberately, so that we can choose the men and women who have a plan to take our country to the next level over the next 5 years. I am very confident that the people of Kenya will make choices that will take our country to the future. This morning, the people, the people of Kenya will choose. And let me say that in moments like this is when the mighty and the powerful come to the realization that it is the simple and the ordinary that eventually make the choice. And this morning, in their simplicity, in their being ordinary, every Kenyan will choose the next leaders for our country. And all of us submit to the authority and the power of the vote as exercised by every Kenyan. It is upon all of us to respect the choices of the people of Kenya, as will be done today in every part of the Kenya, in every part of the Republic of Kenya. And I look forward to our victorious day.
Privilege.
I'll tell them I have voted. You can see the ink. Kindly get out and vote. It's our day today to determine the direction this country takes. Make your voice heard.
It's been long awaited, and definitely it is here, that day where Kenyans have indeed been expecting, and here it is, no longer to wait for any other day. So we're looking at every situation as it goes, day by day, beat by beat, and of course, blow by blow accounts is what we'll be giving to you. Of course, we've got our eyes and ears at different polling units. They will be sharing all the information that you need to know, especially about the ongoing elections. And inside here with us in the studios, we do have, of course, Rickson, who will be talking to us here. And don't forget to, as well, joining us online, that's via Zoom. We do have Declan as well, who will be talking on the ongoing elections. Let's start off first with Rickson, as we've just seen not quite long ago in that footage that saw William Ruto saying that it's time for the high and mighty to actually, in other words, bow to those who are indeed, in quotes, ordinary, and of course, those who will be making the decisions at this election. What's your take on that statement, by the way? Let me start off with that.
Yes, I can say it's too early to say that, because the election just started. We don't know about the results, but we are looking forward to a credible, free and fair election, whereby the voice of the Kenyan will be heard. And considering the level of our democracy right now, we believe that whoever Kenyans will choose will be president of Kenya.
You just mentioned the expectation for credible elections. And let's talk about how well the IEBC trusted to deliver that credible elections. There have been conversations about, we'll go deeper into that much later, the conversations about using a printed and registered manual, or printed forms for registering, or the manual ones. How much confidence would you say the people of Kenya have in the IEBC to ensure that these polls will be free, fair and credible?
The people of Kenya, I think they have a lot of confidence in the IEBC. They are looking forward to a credible election. About preparedness of the IEBC has been assuring Kenyans they are ready. But looking at the instances that happened yesterday, a day to election, I think most Kenyans maybe can be worried. But all in all, we hope for the best.
Hoping for the best. Let's also talk about technology and data protection. Now, we do recall that, of course, the IBC and looking at the fact that ahead of these elections, a lot of things were being pointed. Most importantly, multiple votes, where one person gets to vote more than once. And that came in place, the Kregler, of course, which was in place to ensure that data was indeed protected. Do you see this happening at this election, that you would have one person to one vote, or there are instances where this may not take place?
I believe in this election we're going to have one person, one vote. Because, yes, we've had those talks some months ago that there's a time that there were allegations that around 2 million votes were removed from the online kit. And that's why we had the discussion about using the manual register concurrently with the KIMS kit. The UDA party, I think they petitioned the use of the same, and the High Court said that, okay, well, the manual register can be used at the same time with this one. But again, the Court of Appeal said no. But what you should understand is that they didn't say that we'll not be using it at all. We will be using it at the instance where, like, all the other systems have failed to identify you, then we go to the manual. So I believe in some polling stations, the manual register will not be opened at all.
Just before I bring in Declan, quick confirmation, the KIMS kit was used in 2017, right?
Yes.
All right, Declan, let's talk to you about the potential of the KIMS kit or of technology being a success. I mean, we're in 2022, everyone is talking about elections, we're talking about bringing in technology and the credibility of the elections in this regard. We know that there have been conversations back and forth as regards the use of KIMS kit as well as the use of manual systems of accrediting voters. In your opinion, I mean, the arguments for and against, on the one hand, they're saying that the manual format would be slow and would allow for manipulation, electoral malpractice. But on the other hand, they're talking about the fact that technology can fail. And where it fails, some people will not be allowed to vote, they'll be disenfranchised. What are your thoughts regarding the argument for and against KIMS kit and manual voting or manual registration? But before you answer that, a few quick facts about KIMS kit. KIMS kit stands for Kenya Integrated Elections Management System. It has a biometric voter registration system that is used electronically to capture voters' facial image, fingerprints, and civil data. This information will then be used to verify voters' identification and curb impersonation. Some 55,100 KIMS kit have been distributed nationally. Now back to you, Declan. What are your thoughts on this?
So this is really one of the most controversial and complicated parts with regard to Kenya's election. By and large, the readout that I've been getting from either election technology experts or other Kenyans within civil society is that the KEMS kits themselves are actually not the biggest concern during this election. The larger concern is voter transmission and the electronic transition of votes from polling station to constituency tallying centers up until kind of the main tallying center, both at BOMAS and then IEBC servers, right? So no, obviously KEMS is part of that, but the real anxiety comes in place with the movement of those votes. And there's not a tremendous amount of confidence among certain kind of observers or certain civil society organizations around the transparency of the movement of those votes. Part of that is the trauma, I think, that people experienced from the 2017 elections. But I think that the technology is a really complicated thing for people to wrap their heads around, and that there's still some lingering concerns.
So is it a good thing that, the IEBC has come out to say that they would use both systems, the technology, of course, and the manual one? You're saying it's a good thing, right?
I think so. So I think having both in place is important, right? So as much as people want to stop ballot stuffing and stopping kind of ghost voters from participating in the election, I think we also need to recognize that technology and our management of technology more specifically is often flawed. And we need to make sure that we have inclusive elections as much as we try to prevent voter fraud. And so including a manual register as a last resort, just as our colleague Rickson had mentioned, I think is the right move. And I think having all these things together is a strong approach to preventing voter fraud and maintaining inclusivity for the election.
All right, Declan, let's take a look at data protection as well. And more importantly, would you say that using technology in Africa, especially with the Kenyan election, we did see the use of technology here in Nigeria a few months back, especially with the elections that held in the southeastern part of Nigeria, and now going forward to February, where the general elections will also be held in Nigeria and other parts of Africa. Would you say Africa is indeed ripe in use of technology, especially with data protection towards elections?
So here's my answer to that, because a lot of people ask that question. And I don't think that we should view progress or democracy as kind of on a linear trajectory. Whatever the democracy is and whatever the election management is in Kenya needs to make sense for Kenyans, not necessarily outside donors, not necessarily people who claim that this is the best practice as opposed to that. Certainly there are good and bad practices, but whatever it is that we do in the management of elections in Kenya must be meaningful and inclusive for Kenyans, and the same would apply to Nigerians. Each of these countries is going to be different. Each of the societies and their approach to kind of what democratic participation looks like will be different. And we need to make sure that democracies are in line with whatever those expectations are for people. So that's kind of the way I look at it. I think technology is great. I think it's really important for certain areas, especially when you've got high volumes of voters. But we really need to focus on making sure that people participate in a meaningful way.
All right, we'll still come back to explore the conversation further about the IEBC, especially as regards the announcement that was made yesterday. I think it was yesterday. The chairman of the IEBC had stated that a few of the election materials or the ballot papers had been routed wrongly. But we're going to be looking at this further. But now I'd like to especially welcome to join us on the show the chairperson, Eastern Africa Center for Constitutional Development, Bobby Nkangi, who has just cast his vote. Good morning, Bobby. Thank you for joining us.
Morning to you. Thank you for having me.
Talk to us, Bobby. How's the experience been? You just cast your vote. Tell us about what it's been like.
Well, one, I'm happy to have done it. I got here from the time I joined the queue to the time I cast my vote. It took approximately an hour. I have to say from observations, because this has been my polling center since the referendum we held in 2010 and then the 2013 and 2017 elections, my observation is that there have been fewer people by the time I got here, around 8:20. There were fewer people. I expected to see more people compared to 2017 and 2013. Although people are streaming in slowly, I think the volume will increase by as the day goes by. But so far, the exercise is going on very well. It's a plug and play for most people. I haven't heard of any major complaints, apart from a few people perhaps not being identified through the KIMS kit, but that has not generated any problems, major problems, because there are backup mechanisms of doing it. So far I'm happy. I've been able to exercise my constitutional and democratic right, and I hope the rest of Kenyans who registered as voters, the 22 plus million of them, and the ones who will come out to vote will be able to do it as smoothly as I did.
All right. Bobby, I'm not going to say that you possibly could have been eavesdropping or something, but most times when you stay on a queue, according to statements by people who actually line up to vote, you often hear people talk about who they would likely vote for and what they're expecting. What were people saying while you were standing in line? What statements were they making? Were they talking about the elections? Were they talking about the tragedies? Were they talking about the problems and so on? Tell us, just let's feel the pulse of what people were saying.
Well, as you know, we vote via secret ballot, and I think Kenyans, and especially as you asked where I am and the queue I was on, were very secretive. So there wasn't much in terms of hearing through eavesdropping as to what direction or what calls people were going to make. In fact, most of the conversation was around people asking each other about the polling station or the streams that they're supposed to be in, because they're numbered and perhaps somebody will come to number 3 and they're supposed to be on number 5, the queue on number 5. So that was much of the conversation amongst us as prospective voters. I think people are playing their cards very close to their chests, and so it's very difficult
Well, that's
to
their right.
discern.
That's
Yeah,
their right
from
at the
the
end of the
queue,
day. And like we
what
always say,
direction they'll take.
let the best man win, and may the voice of the people be
Yes.
reflected in the result of the elections. Bobby, talk to us.
Exactly.
You did mention at the start of your conversation that there were slight challenges with the Kim's kit, but of course, we're confident in the backup situations. So far, has there been any situation where there was any voter that could not be recognized, with the Kim's kit as well as with the manual registration?
No, not where I am. The lady before me was not identified immediately, but the officials, IEBC officials, the presiding officer and the returning officers and the clerks, per se, were able to deal with the situation. And she was able to eventually vote. So that's the situation that I noted here. Because we're also following proceedings from other parts of the country through social media and then the mainstream media also. So you get to hear of some reports from different parts, but the major thing is to state that even where the kits have failed, and this is quite minimal from my gauging as of now, no voter has been turned away, because as I think I had when I joined the streaming, the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal yesterday did clarify that the voters' identification method will be, the primary one will be biometric using the Kim's kit, and that is just confirming what the Elections Act states right from 2016. The manual register is the backup plan. It's the last resort where the electronic gadgets fail to identify a voter, and other methodologies have been used and they can't identify a voter. So I think most voters will turn out to vote, will be able in one way or another to cast their votes using these different ways of ensuring that no voter is turned away at the end of the day.
Bobby, your eyes on ground. It would be nice for us to see what the surrounding looks like. Is that possible now? If not, at some point during the conversation, we'd like to see what the polling unit looks like. And if possible, go inside and see what the ballot boxes look like.
I don't know, because I'm not an accredited media person.
Okay.
Whether they'll allow me to get in with
that's okay. We certainly would ensure that happens before the end of the program this morning.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to us, Bobby. We look forward to talk to you once more, so please do well to stay put. But in the meantime, we have an update on a different polling station or unit. And let's quickly bring you a footage here, and we'll tell you what's really going on. Take a look. I'm sure you're possibly stunned at what we just saw right now. Well, the latest update is that what you just saw happening at Rongai is residents. You saw residents protesting. Why are they protesting? Well, that's because of the missing MP ballot papers. Yes, that's the latest. Now, IBC has suspended MP elections in Rongai constituency, and that's what you can see on the screen right now. And they are waiting for the latest updates. But this is after the missing MP ballot papers was indeed notified. So it was noted that there are missing MP ballot papers, and therefore they suspended the elections right there. And there you can see voting suspended, and people are indeed taking it to the streets. And of course, doing what they know how to do best, protest, and continue to protest. Why is it different? And that's exactly what you just saw there on the screen. So it's a different case entirely. We just had Bobby join us from his own constituency, where we saw there was calm and quiet. But this time it's different in Rongai. Let's go straight to our man who's here with us. So talk about Rickson. Rickson, I'm sure you're very familiar with that constituency, Rongai, as well. Tell us what possibly could have gone wrong.
Yeah, let me say that, as I said earlier, I think the IBC has really failed Kenyans this time around. because it's today in the morning. People already at the polling station. How comes we don't have that? It's a really a big embarrassment on their part, and this is happening for the first time. I don't know why, but it's happening for the first time. We've never had such instances, because I understand very well that Kenyans are people who really like to pursue the legal avenue of every matter. This raises the questions after the results are announced. We'll have so many cases in court in regard to that. Someone can go and say, okay, because the MPs, the MPs, whatever was postponed on the D-Day, my supporters went away. It's a valid reason. Yeah, so I believe we are going to have maybe a lot of court cases, but my prayer is that we are going to do everything through legal means, and we are going to have a peaceful election.
I think the question is, how did those ballot papers get missing in the first place? We've had how many years to prepare for these elections? How are we still having these conversations? I'd also like Declan to react to this as well. We've seen the video about the protests going on. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think that this kind of mismanagement with regard to the IEBC, we've seen a kind of a pattern of this in the past. It's really difficult to manage an election, and so to a large extent we would expect this kind of confusion to occur. What's unfortunate is it happened in a place like Nakuru. So Rongai is in Nakuru. Nakuru is kind of one of these hotspots. We've had violence in the past. It's a ethnically cosmopolitan area, so politics is a little bit more tense. There's been a really good effort to kind of reduce tension over the past few weeks. But something like this, mismanagement of the IEBC, mismanagement of materials by the IEBC, really underscores some concerns that people have in terms of the quality of election in certain areas. And we can see people taking to the streets and showing how upset they are.
There was a video where the IEBC chair, Wafula Chebukati, had stated that some ballot papers had been wrongfully routed, although he did say much later that eventually these papers had been then sent to the correct destinations. Some people have expressed great concerns that this might reflect what is to be expected at the polls today. I mean, we've seen what's happening here. What are your thoughts? Do you think that this is something that will be expected to happen in several parts of Kenya today?
So I think two things. I think the first thing to mention is I don't know why we have only discovered this morning that the wrong MP ballots were in Rongai, right? So we were talking a lot about this yesterday in the evening as polling materials were shuttled around the country, and we started to realize that maybe some ballots were mismarked and they needed to be moved, right? So the IABC, according to Chebukati, has kind of air service available to be able to pick up ballots in one area, fly them to the correct place across the country. So why this wasn't picked up in Nakuru, I think we need to ask more probing questions on. However, I think that it would be, I would, over the next couple hours, I will say we'll have a stronger sense of whether people will be protesting because of missing ballot materials. By this time and day, and it's almost 10 a.m. in Nairobi, we have a sense in terms of where there are delays, where there are missing ballots, where there's mismanagement. Certainly we'll have technology delays. There'll be other problems throughout the day, but we should be wrapping up kind of concern around missing ballots or ballots being in wrong places here over the next hour.
That's a tough one there. Well, let's go straight to you, Bobby. Bobby, you just saw what's going on in Rongai. What's your take on that?
And as the previous speaker stated, it's very, very surprising that it's right at the tail end, like the beginning of the very important aspect of the elections process, and that is voting, that these anomalies are being discovered. But there's also a background to this. I think I had Barack speak to this, that this is giving ingredients many of the cases that we may expect as petitions at different levels of the polls and positions. There has been tangles around the tendering processes for the printing of these ballot papers. This has always been an issue, and I'm sure if this is not carefully handled, the day goes by, that it will revive the ghosts of all those debates and issues that were around the tendering for the printing of these ballot papers. But also it raises the issue of, and I think one of you mentioned it earlier, that right now in our constitution, it's possible to know when Kenya will go to elections, even in the next 10 years, because the date is prescribed in the constitution. So every 5th year we go for an election, and we have to prepare for the election, right from the end of the last one. So you come and find that, unfortunately for IEC, they've had to deal with so many issues within a space of 6 months. Yes, it is understandable that ballot papers probably get printed right at the tail end of the processes, after the primaries, after dispute resolution issues, and the appeal issues. As we had, the Court of Appeal was making a pronouncement as late as yesterday on something very important, this morning's election. So there are all these challenges and technicalities that the IEBC has been visited with. Some of them, unfortunately, attend also to other state institutions. For instance, the issue of funding and getting funding towards IEBC. One at the right time, but also adequately. This has been a problem. We also remember that 4 of the IEBC commissioners joined office only last September, not to directly try to attach this to the problem that we are seeing now, but it creates a background as to the preparedness of IEBC, but also the country as a whole, when you consider that, as I mentioned, other state institutions have, in a large way, also failed IEBC in one way or another. And I think this problem that we are seeing this morning, points to those issues.
Well, Bobby, let's also let the viewers know, especially all who have joined us this morning, that indeed that situation is escalating as we speak right now in the Rongai constituency, where the MP ballot papers have been declared missing, and therefore voting can no longer continue in that area. Let's take a look at that footage one more time for those who've just tuned in. Well, this is News Central. We are Africa First, and we are definitely following live situations at different polling units concerning Kenya as they decide who will be the next president for the next years to come. So once more, the situation is indeed escalating, and we can tell you right now that it is something that's quite worrisome, especially for voters who are looking forward to cast their votes this morning. But we still have our guest here joining us. Don't forget, we'll let you in on how you too can be part of the conversation as we continue. But let's also look at this situation that's ongoing now in Rongai constituency. A lot of people actually came out to vote. As you can see there on the screen, you do have the security operatives who have definitely swung into action, because the most important thing is to ensure that they bring about normalcy and people can go around and carry on their duties. And one thing is also to ensure that the fires that have been indeed put up, especially by those who had their discountenance and are not happy at what they actually envisaged or what they did not envisage taking place, is indeed put to an end. So this is the latest and live updates reaching you from Kenya, right there at the Rongai constituency, where missing MP ballot papers have been discovered. And just like one of our guest in the studio here, Rickson, has said that the IBC definitely have proven to be very disappointing this year, and he's wondering why. But let's take a look at the footage. We'll be right back.
getting updates about the fact that there has been violence because, of course, we did mention earlier that the IEBC has suspended MP elections in Rongai constituency, and we are waiting for Raymond to issue a statement anytime now. But these are the updates, and we hear that it's escalating in Rongai. We're bringing you more updates by the minute as we receive them, but we still have our guests joining us. We have Rickson Mubarak, who's in the studio with us, a political analyst, and via Zoom we have joining us all the way from Nairobi, Declan Galvin, who is the head of Insight Information and Intelligence at WS Insight, and we also have Bobby Nkagi, who has just he's just cast his vote, I beg your pardon, chairperson, Eastern Africa Center for Constitutional Development. Let's talk about election violence. Now, I did see a poll by IPSOS that talked about the fact that when Kenyans were asked how many of them were not likely to vote, 11% of them had said that they were not likely to vote because they were afraid of insecurity. Either 9 or 11%, I'm not quite sure now. But there were concerns of insecurity. Let's talk about the 2017 elections. We know how that turned out. What were some of the lessons that we learned from 2017 that should have been implemented to prevent these kind of situations happening in 2022? Or was it totally unavoidable? And I'll start with you in the studio, Bobby.
Okay, looking at 2017 elections, I think 2017 elections was really a hot one. And the violence that followed it was really serious. We had a lot of deaths. We had a lot of the deaths during the demonstrations and all those things. But let's look at 2017. 2017, most of the errors that were there were missing names on the kits and whatever. So I believe that this year, being the next, because we learn from the process that we have done, like to project the future. So I believe that this year's election will be more smooth compared to that one. And now that this is happening, it's really bad because we know Kenyans attach a lot of emotions in elections. The IBC has failed Kenyans, and also they had assured us that it's going to be good. The government also had played a very big role in ensuring that the citizens feel safe. Most of the time during elections, we have an instance where people are moving from where they are to their local regions to go and vote. Some of them who are registered if maybe you're living in Nairobi, like you'll find those people living in Nairobi going back to their regions to vote. But now, this time around, that has not happened because the government had really tried to tell Kenyans that it will be safe, just stay where you are. And such kind of issues is what most Kenyans fear, because this one, if it happens here and this escalates, I just hope that they're going to calm down the situation and to at least make sure that everything runs well.
All right. I'd also like to bring in Bobby on this conversation. Bobby, you're on the ground there. Let's talk about, yes, I did see a video by Rift Valley Regional Commissioner Mohammed Malim where he said that special units had been deployed to Rift Valley in the region to ensure that there is sanity. There were also concerns that there were 7 counties that have been marked as potential hotspots. From what you see so far, would you say that enough was put into ensuring the safety and the security of the citizens of Kenya for the 2022 elections?
Well, one, it's still early in the day to make a solid judgment on the issue of security. And that's we're seeing right now. It's only Rongai that is being reported to having skirmishes. I hope that situation will calm down the moment. So we hope, largely our reporting is go by what is happening, and where I am, I observed people voting, coming in and stripping out quite peacefully. Not heard of reports from any other part of the country. We hope the situation will stay like this. But yes, definitely, and especially since 2007, where we had what is now phenomenally called post-election violence. The issue of the Kenyan elections escalating into conflict, and for that matter, violent conflict, is something that is in every Kenyan's mind whenever we come to this exercise. I'll have to say that IEBC, I think, a few days ago actually did have a meeting with the state operators that are concerned with security, right from the regional commissioners, the police, department, the director of public prosecution, and also non-state agencies that are concerned with the issue of security. And preparations have been made. In fact, even toll-free numbers have been provided and published for Kenyans to know and report whenever they see any incident that may lead to violent skirmishes. So, in that regard, I would say there's been good preparation. In the past few days, we've also seen other social agencies, church and Muslim leaders come out and preach peace. We've had the peace caravans. We've had the National Commission and Integration Commission, come out and also preach peace, set up peace committees around the country and also nationally. All in a bid to ensure that whenever there are issues, they are calmed down immediately, addressed before they escalate to uncontrollable situations. So yes, you mentioned that many Kenyans, about 10%, were afraid to come out to vote, pegging
Yes.
to insecurity. But again, also, if the pollsters are to go by, we've had an equally huge number.
Okay, Bobby.
Yeah.
I'd like to quickly bring in Declan on this because we're still talking about insecurity in the elections. And Declan, I'd like to refer to the pre-election preparation. Bobby has said that the days leading up to the elections, he can't say that the IEBC did put in measures in place to ensure that the election is fair and safe. Would you agree with him? And also, making reference to 2017 elections, do you think that we were able to take some lessons from there to implement in 2022?
Thank you. So we've looked at this issue really closely. And of course, the security of the elections is something that is very important to the Kenyan public. From our assessment, security services in Kenya have never been better prepared for this election than any other election that they've done. So that doesn't mean that there aren't gaps. That doesn't mean that if we do have kind of some kind of systematic violence, that law enforcement would be able to manage in the way that we would need. But this is as good as we've ever seen. And they have been more data driven. And what I mean by that is really understanding kind of where civil society organizations are concerned, where national surveys in terms of concern and preparedness, where the NCIC is kind of considering hotspot areas. And they've used this information plus what they already know through intelligence in order to deploy more effectively. And so it's never been as good as it is this time. I will also, make the remark that the head of the Election Security Secretariat at the National Police Service has really taken kind of public awareness up an extra step. This is somebody who's been very available, very open to engaging with a whole range of stakeholders. And so there's been a lot of effort there. However, we're already seeing problems, right? And and the first thing I think that we should mention is if we look at so far what's been transpiring in Rongai, I haven't seen evidence as of now of any heavy-handedness or brutality from security services. Obviously, things could evolve differently. Perhaps I've got an information gap, but from the footage we've seen, I haven't seen any heavy-handedness. That's the first one in terms of respect for human rights. Secondly, as I'm sure you and maybe some of your viewers are aware of, there was a pretty significant concern in Eldas constituency of Wajir yesterday, where opposing politician supporters clashed. That resulted in a shootout. We've also had an MP arrested in Western region for allegedly coming to the polling station with machetes and other kinds of weapons. We'll see kind of how that plays out. But point is, there's an enormous kind of insecurity concern, and the security services are, I think, really working to try to make sure that they respond appropriately in order to allow Kenyans to execute their right, which is to vote.
Quite interesting that you've actually pointed that out as well. Well, let's take a look at other aspects of the elections as it's ongoing. Don't forget that you can be part of the conversation. Like I said, we'll let you in on how. Well, let's take a look at the female who is indeed leading. One who has a very prominent face and has been in the election circles for quite a long time. I'm going to start with you, Rickson. First of all, let's look at Martha Garuwa. Her presence, and what do you think that will bring to the table? Will that help in securing the votes?
Mother Garuwa is a game changer. Mother Garuwa being appointed as running mate for Azimio, I think it had a lot of impact, and it's for the first time because we are looking at probabilities. We say that it's mostly a two-horse race. The others, we cannot ignore them, but the probability is that is either the UDA candidate or the Azimio candidate. But by Azimio choosing on Mother Garuwa, a woman who we have seen to be an iron lady, she's one who doesn't entertain issues of maybe let's say corruption, because I remember very well the last time she was working with the President Kibaki, and there was something that she was not subscribing to. She resigned, and that's how she got out of it. I think by bringing her really changed a lot of things, because most Kenyans, especially the females, the women, felt like they are being represented. Number two, her personality is appealing. Number three, like we also, this is now on a different view. We also look at age and ambitions. Yeah. Most of the time they say that when the young people get into power, the first thing they want to do is to amass wealth and be like others. But now we look at what she has done. She has been there. How many cases has she been involved in? How many scandals? You look at the duo and where she joined. I think it's a really big game changer.
It's interesting that you say that this is a game changer for Odinga. That's because I'm seeing stats by IPSOS, and they're talking. They asked several people. Of course, they did a survey asking people who are they likely to vote, and from the survey, I'm seeing here that majority of the females lean toward William Ruto. So they said Raila Odinga had 51% of urbanites, males, older people 35 and above, and William Ruto had 45% of those in rural areas, females and youth. Of course, those under the age of 24 in this regard, 24 and within that age bracket. There's also conversation surrounding not a lot of women being involved in politics and being interested even in voting, that there's political apathy experienced amongst young people and amongst women. Let's talk about female participation in politics in Kenya. What has the situation been before now? And do you project that Martha Garuwa coming out, and if she wins, do you project that it will be a game changer for female politics participation in Kenya?
Yes, definitely. If she wins, we'll be having more women leaders. We had a new constitution in 2010 where it provided for 2/3 gender rule. From that time, we've been trying to bring on board as many women as possible. And we can see, okay, although the bills aligned to that have been frustrated in Parliament, but okay, we also had a question. We want to bring in more women, but so are they competent? What's their competency level? Okay, there was that kind of debate, and the male legislators were saying that if also a female wants to get where I am, she must also go to the field, fight for herself. And we've You've seen that happen with Mother Garuwa. Immediately she was appointed to be the running mate. She started having rallies. Even at night, she was having rallies tirelessly. And if at all she gets a chance, I believe that our democracy will move a step ahead in terms of women involvement.
I have to bring Declan in on this because, the world is having conversations about gender equality, which is United Nations, Goal 5 of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And, when Bobby was speaking, he mentioned that the women, or Rickson rather, I beg your pardon, when Rickson was speaking, he mentioned that the women need to go out there, do the work. He mentioned the fact that women have to be more involved and sort of in some way prove their competence. But we find that men do not usually have to prove their confidence or their competence when it comes to elections. Don't you think that we should see more of the men even pushing and supporting for women if we are going to achieve that gender equality, if we are going to see more women participating in politics in Kenya and around Africa?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so no question, we still live in societies which are dominated with patriarchy and gender roles, which will diminish the role or impact women will have over policy making and other kinds of important national choices. No question on that, and no question that Martha Garuwa in particular is just a very distinguished, accomplished public servant. So she's been in government for a length of time. She's held elective office. She's a constitutional expert. She is a very highly competent person. And so to have her as the number 2 on a ticket, I think should be reassuring, regardless if you support Raila Odinga or if you support William Ruto. She's just a really well-established individual. The other thing that I want to mention, I've talked about this in other forums before as well, which is we really need to kind of appreciate and understand what participation in politics looks like. And while we definitely need more kind of upfront representation of women in Kenyan politics, as well as basically all of our countries, there's a lot going on at the community level where women take the lead. And I think that we also need to really appreciate what local leadership and what servant leadership looks like at all levels, rather than simply just saying, look, we're gonna campaign, we're gonna be very vocal, we're gonna weigh in on these these kind of national issues. Oftentimes, I think that campaigns and people campaigning for public office are not great representatives of any constituency or any social segment. So I think it's also about celebrating women and local leaders, not just saying there's only one way to participate in this system, and that's through elective office, even though we need to be more equitable when we approach gender representation in public office.
All right, still talking about Martha, by the way. Well, don't forget that she was a former Justice Minister, and one of the things that made her relinquish or indeed leave that position was the fact that she couldn't bring about the changes in the judicial system, and that made her change her mind towards continuing. But now she is going to be the first vice president, especially for Kenya. We're starting to see a trend that's ongoing, but of course, it's been mentioned that supporters, especially feminists, who are indeed pushing that it's high time the women get involved. Let me talk to Bobby first. Bobby, let's talk about Martha's strides so far, looking at her implication of becoming the first vice president, if that happens, and most importantly, all the years she's always had her hands handful in politics. What's your take on that?
As you say, and the previous speakers stated, Martha Garuwa is a big brand in Kenyan politics. And also the fact that the masterstroke for Raila Odinga and his formation as Neo, you have picked her as a running. And if the polls are to go by, we can see that there was a significant change in the support that Raila Odinga and Azimio was able to garner after Martha was put on the ticket. But we also need to remember and be cautious of the fact that as Kenya, we are still pretty much lagging behind in the region in terms of creating sufficient space for the women folk in our country to participate in politics, especially. When you look at neighboring countries like Rwanda, which is actually a global leader in terms of ensuring that the participation of women in politics is prioritized. When you look at the numbers, their House of Representatives or Parliament. When you look at Tanzania, at Uganda, they all work to ensure that at least 30% upwards of representatives in Parliament ladies. In Kenya, as Mubarak mentioned, the Constitution does create the principle that not more than 2/3 of gender should be in any public institution. This is where the elective or appointed, but we've missed this mark, particularly in the National Assembly. We've seen more ladies come out try and vie for seats, but the environment is still not very friendly for women to participate in competitive politics in the country. But as the person we're talking about, Martha Karua, I think her stature and participation, and especially as a running mate, Raila Odinga, and Mubarak hinted, the fact that Azimio is one of the front-running formations, so the likelihood of her becoming the first lady deputy president is quite high. But you must also remember she actually ran for presidency back in 2013. And this she did with the offering of what we just described earlier, that she has resigned as the justice minister, and very much in principle, going against the grain of the late president, retired President Mike Kibaki, whom she had vehemently fought for in 2007 after the announcement of the presidential election results. Kenyans and those who around Africa and the world who follow Kenyan politics will remember that the primary character who held their foot down to ensure that Mike Kibaki as president was actually Martha Karua. So it is, they say in politics, no permanent enemies, matter of interest. So the interesting thing is also to see Raila Odinga come together with Martha Karua.
All right.
What happened.
Okay, Bobby, while you were talking, we did see a footage of Raila Odinga, of course, with his entourage. We hear he's making his way to cast his vote. As you can see there on the screen, you can see there his entourage, and of course, he's making his way. Earlier on, we did see William Ruto do that. I think he woke up very early in the morning. Aside that, we also saw Martha, and whom we're talking about, who also did cast a vote and showed her fingers up in the air, telling everyone to equally do the same. But let's still stick to Africa as a whole, with Kenya as a case study, now that Kenya will make her decision today. All right, on the screen there as well. Yes, most definitely. You can see that man there. All right, let's see if we can have some audio there. Let's see if we can hear what's ongoing there.
He looks very fashionable.
That's
very, very fashionable.
Very fashionable indeed. Let's take a look at what we have been expecting here. That's right. That's presidential candidate who is indeed ready to cast his vote. We're starting to see all of them come out one after the other, and that's.
Yeah, so this is George Wadakoya. I believe he's the wild card of this season. He's the leader of the Roots Party of Kenya, and he's been, of course, referred to as a wild card. He was also a spy turned law professor. He has some really interesting
you can see the
manifesto.
You can see his stylish appearance right there. Of course, he's got the
durag.
I'm very sure Rickson will speak more on him, having spent a couple of time there in Kenya talking about this man. And earlier on, if we can recall, here on the first half of this coverage. We did hear one of our guests say he's very close to him. As a matter of fact, it could have been that he possibly was a bodyguard as well, if I'm right.
In a club in London?
Club in London, possibly. And here he is, having been told to go to school, and then he's at school and he's done. Aside from being a spy, he's here as a professor. Now he is a aspiring presidential candidate there. As you can see him, ready to cast his vote as well. We've seen Ruto, who's on his way, and most definitely, we definitely have seen Wilder as well. But let's quickly bring about this question. We're starting to see African presidents having female vice presidents. We saw the first one that took place, and we're talking about one recently in Tanzania, where John Magufuli also had the support of his very own Samia Suluhu Hassan. Unfortunately, John Magufuli is late now, and Samia Suluhu Hassan has taken over and is doing great things according to ratings in Tanzania. Now we're seeing Raila having Martha as well. Is it a new trend we're starting to see in Africa? I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, and also like to hear the thoughts of Declan on this question as well.
Yes, I can say that Africa is now starting to at least recognize women. Because let's say in a situation like Tanzania, we had John Pombe Magufuli as the president, but something that you should also note, during his presidency, we could not hear more of Samia Suluhu. So by her ascending to power, it was just situational, according to the unfortunate incident that happened that John passed on. Now, my sentiments on this, I think I can say that Africa is beginning to wake up and recognize women, because I believe that right now in Kenya, my other commentator had talked about it, but in my own opinion, I believe that right now in Kenya we are having an increasing number, although we are not yet there, but we're having an increasing number of women in leadership positions. But something funny is that most of them are placed at the vice. Where we find that them being the top, it's a few, but a few cases. But now,
Ellen Johnson Sirleaf.
Yeah, let's look at like the Chief Justice currently. It's Martha Koome. She's a woman. Deputy, a woman. The judicial system right now is led by women, which is a very key component in a country. So I can say that Africa, we're beginning to wake up in that.
We're catching up with the West in that regard.
All right, so what's your take on this, Declan?
Yeah, so I think ultimately we're going to be moving in a direction where there's going to be more women in leadership roles, where it's going to be more visible. I think that's an inevitability, but we've got a long ways to go. I will make note in terms of Kenya's constitution, because it is a really fascinating and progressive document. So not only are there specific provisions to make sure that there are women represented in government, but also people with disabilities, people who have albinism, and also youth. And so that is specifically inscribed within the Constitution. That is a fascinating, that's a fascinating document, and that will help kind of, I think, push forward, better inclusion of underrepresented or at-risk segments of society. So I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. I think that there's been good progress, but I think we also have to be realistic about some of the obstacles.
That's really brilliant. I mean, you mentioning that the Constitution is a very inclusive one. I'm hoping that more countries, in Africa will take a cue from that. We need to see more representation in our politics around the continent. Let's go back to talking about presidential aspirants. And, I'd like to hear your thoughts on each of them. I'll just quickly run through them. We have Raila Odinga, who is running for, he's running for president. This is his 5th time, and he's running under Azimio Umoja. He's a leader of the Orange Democratic Party. We also have, William Ruto, who is the current deputy president to Uhuru Kenyatta, and he is also the leader of the United Democratic Alliance, UDA. And we also have George Wajakoya. George Wajakoya, of course, is the one who we just saw casting his votes. Is the leader. Oh no, that's yeah. We certainly just saw him, right, with the do-rag and the glasses.
Always looks different at support. Sometimes he comes out with the suits and shirts, and sometimes he's got the do-rag and all that. And as mentioned, he was a former grave digger.
Yes.
And so much.
Such
He's
an
got
interesting
a lot
story.
on his sleeves, huh?
Yeah.
You'll find him campaigning barefoot.
Yeah. I mean, he's the Roots Party leader, and he caught the attention of many, with his, he's talking about legalizing marijuana, he's talking about snakes, and he believes the revenue would help to service national debt and solve unemployment. Born in Kenya. He was born in Matungu in Western Province. That's George Wajakoya there.
He also believes in the death sentence, by the way.
Oh, yes. So that's another conversation we'll go into. And then, of course, we've talked about Raila Odinga, who is not just running for the 5th time. He has experience, 77 years old, former member of parliament, prime minister from 2008 to 2013, and has been in the African Union representative for infrastructure development since 2018. A key promise in Odinga's election manifesto is the transformation of Kenya's economy. He was born in Kenya's Kisumu County. We also have William Ruto contesting. I mean, we've mentioned him earlier, but just running through a brief bio, contesting under Kenya Kwanza, an alliance that includes his United Democratic Alliance, UDA, Amani National Congress, ANC, and the Forum for the Restoration of Democracy Kenya, Ford Kenya. He has been Kenya's deputy president since Uhuru Kenyatta, and he has promised to introduce a new bottom-up economic model in Kenya if he's elected. He's also pledged to implement a 2/3 gender rule in elective offices. He was born in Uasin Gishu County, and he has party hopped frequently since 2005. That's details of William Ruto.
All right. And don't forget, too, that the current president, of course, you could talk about Kenyatta and much more, is indeed very involved in this. Don't forget, he can no longer contest to be the president again, because if he does that, I'm sure Rickson will agree with me here that all Kenyans will be agitated and it could turn out to be something else, no longer democracy. But there you have him as well. You can see he's got... I wouldn't say an entourage this time, I'd say a crowd who are indeed following his convoy, and they are indeed screaming and saying it's high time for Kenyatta to actually also lead the way. Don't forget, he's going to do the handover. Many were expecting him to hand over to his deputy, William Ruto, but it's been some quite a change, and there are synonymous reasons that have come up why he is not in support of his deputy, but rather he is in support of Raila Odinga and, of course, Martha herself. Well, Rickson will shed more light on this, but let's look at democracy as it stands. Is Kenya actually pulling through in ensuring that it lives up to the democratic process? I'm going to start first with you, my very own guest here, Declan, who is here with us as well online. Declan, what's your take on that? We just saw footage of Uhuru Kenyatta there. Handing over is one thing that is very key when it comes to democracy. What's your take?
So I think we couple points to raise. The first is that Uhuru. So there was this rumor and allegation a few years ago that Uhuru Kenyatta was going to find a way to remain in power, right? Kind of like what Vladimir Putin had done in Russia, where Medvedev kind of came in as president and Putin was prime minister, and then they did a switcheroo, and that is not happening, right? And I think we really need to take note of that there was cynicism, and the cynics were incorrect. Uhuru Kenyatta will transfer power. This is also not the first time that this has happened in Kenya, right? If we go back to a very important moment, which was the rise of NARC, right, the National Rainbow Coalition, that basically put to bed KANU, which was the party that was allegedly supposed to run for 100 years, according to Jomo Kenyatta and Daniel Arap Moi. There was a peaceful transition from KANU to this opposition, which was with Moi Kibaki, who's now deceased, Raila Odinga, who's now contesting, and Martha Karua, who is Raila's deputy. So there is this history, and I think that we are both lucky and privileged to live in a country like Kenya, where the public understands that power needs to be transferred. And if we look at many of Kenya's neighbors, right? Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Rwanda, these are not places where that's as assumed as the Kenyan public assumes transfer is imminent, and I think that's worth noting.
I'd like us to talk very quickly about the reasons why Uhuru Kenyatta has thrown his support behind his longtime rival Raila Odinga. Now we know that the beef, or rather the issues between them, have gone from generation to generation, starting from their fathers, who were both president and vice president of Kenya. Lead us through why he is now supporting Raila Odinga as opposed to what everyone would have expected, which is William Ruto.
I think so. Kenyan politics at the elite level is quite cynical and very transactional. As you mentioned during your profile of Ruto, he's been party hopping and building his own infrastructure for decades now. I think that there is this deep concern amongst Uhuru Kenyatta's inner circle that a couple of things would have transpired if they didn't have kind of what we call the handshake. The first is that Uhuru's legacy would have been disrupted because there would have been this onslaught of opposition politics and protests, anything that Uhuru was going to kind of roll out in his second term. I think the second thing, and this is more longer term, I think that people were concerned that Ruto is essentially an imminent threat to their businesses and to their conglomerates and to their kind of future wealth, and that there has been an effort to alienate and marginalize Ruto through that, through those kind of self-interested reasons. So I think that kind of led to this kind of coalition, this arrangement, this alliance, whatever you will call it, between Kenyatta and Odinga. And the last point that I'll make is an enormous amount of people thought that this alliance between Uhuru and Raila wasn't going to hold, that Raila was going to get shafted. But here we are to the end. It's election day, and that relationship has by and large remained intact. So another just interesting dynamic in Kenyan politics.
Okay, when we had the first session, of course, we've been covering the Kenyan election since 4 a.m. West African time. We had a guest talk about the fact that William Ruto, whilst he was in power, or of course we know he's still in power, but serving as deputy president of Kenya State, he alleged that William Ruto did not work and that he spent most of his time campaigning for elections. I want you to respond to that, but I'll start with Rickson. You're Kenyan living in Kenya. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that 100%.
Okay.
Yes. Let's start by looking at the duo, that's the president and the deputy, when they got in power. They had their own plans, etc. But we've had information from inside that one party was a little bit selfish, and it made things difficult for the president to run. And then it went on and on during the first term. We had a lot of bromas, like they were working together, even wearing the same suits, etc. But after that, you realize that maybe my friend is an obstacle to me delivering to what I promised Kenyans. So that is exactly what happened. Look at the sharing of ministerial positions. One party gave a representation of Kenya. The other party, the other person gave a representation of let's say, just from a specific kind of region. So this can tell you the kind of leader that person can be. And this is what made them at least to start parting ways. And also, when we get in office, we go in as a duo. You need to be there to help me. But most of the time, like, the other person had the eye on the other on 2022. I started campaigning long ago. Work is done in the office, not on vehicles campaigning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Bobby, do you agree with him? Are you of the opinion that William Ruto spent majority of his time, or has spent majority of his time as deputy president campaigning rather than being in active governance?
Yes, but again, it's a position that was, I would say, a blessing in disguise for him, because right from the onset of the handshake, when President Kenyatta started working and politically cooperating with Raila Odinga, of the opposition. William Ruto, who did not agree to the pact, and we mentioned earlier, because he's joining President Kenyatta, their pact back in 2012. And as of 2017, even when President Kenyatta, during the run-up to the presidential elections, then during his campaign sloganeering, they tell his supporters that after he completes his 10 years, then Ruto will take over for another 10 years. So Ruto expected Kenyatta, and especially his legacy term, this term that's ending, to also be like a platform for his ascendance, the highest office in the country. And that's why for him, he has been talking about the Big Four agenda that they had, the manifesto they campaigned around back in 2017, which he felt was hijacked by the handshakes instrument, which was the BBI, the Building Bridges Initiative, which eventually morphed into a constitutional review process. And perhaps I can mention this at this juncture. Declan spoke to his and Mubarak, that the President Kenyatta is actually leaving office because of the Constitution. The Constitution only gives 2 5-year terms to any sitting president. And it was seen, and especially by the constitutional review process, term BBI, that this was a way of trying to engineer by providing extra and expanded providing for the positions of Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, expanding some creating constituencies, which majority came from President Kenyatta's region. So it was seen that this was the way that, unlike other countries where presidential term limits are removed, Kenya, especially BBI, was cleverly trying, as Declan saying, to bring about a change that would be almost like the Russian way of doing it. That
Bobby, we may interrupt you a bit.
Would come back as prime minister.
Yeah, Bobby, we have to interrupt you now. We have updates here. Clip, that's a video clip there of Raila Odinga
casting his votes. You can see him there making his way into the polling station. Was indeed a hectic one. As you can see the crowd right there. Rickson, I saw you nodding your head like, okay, it's about time. And we saw some of his security aides as much as possible trying to chase away the crowd. So it seems he has more crowd compared to what we saw with William Ruto, who was even strolling in, or could be that maybe William Ruto came in very early in the morning. But this is Raila Odinga casting his vote. Remember that earlier on, his deputy would be first female deputy president, Martha Garuwa, had already done hers, and he is doing his right now, as you can see there on the screen, exercising his democratic rights right there, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, we know that Raila Odinga, of course, is he's from the leader rather of the Orange Democratic Party, 77 years old. He's been supported by Uhuru Kenyatta, the incumbent president of Kenya. His track record and involvement, of course, in leadership in the past, he's not new to this. He's been trying at this. This would certainly be his 5th try. He has 18 counties that have about 55% preference for him. And of course, some have referred to him as a Democrat, liberator, nationalist. And these are some of the reasons I've been giving for some who have said they will vote him. He has tried this 5 times, or rather, he's tried 4 times before now. This is his 5th try. What, Rickson, do you think he has learned, or what do you think is working for him? Of course, we can see that's a close-up shot of him. I believe that's his accreditation.
That's a candidate, of course.
Voting.
Yeah.
Just working straight up. I mean, there were fears that it wouldn't work, but of course, you've seen the presidential aspirant there. Just it didn't take him nothing less than about 2 minutes, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Thumbprinting, and then of course his and then his face also showing up as well. And we do have former Nigerian president there. You could see him. If you take a closer look, he's wearing the face cap. That's Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, a former president of the Republic of Nigeria here. You can see him there. He's also, as an observer, watching to see how the elections are being staged. Very closely. I'm sure when when Raila Odinga takes a move, you would see him there. He's all smiles, folding his hand, and now they have a handshake there. It shows that, yes, I am not just an observer. I'm also ensuring that everything works smoothly, by the way. You can see the crowd. Everyone is indeed ensuring that everything takes place smoothly. Jonathan, that's the former president of Nigeria, is not just there as an observer, by the way. He's also ensuring that, I'm sure he's taking notes to make sure that everything works nicely. So he can actually give his concrete reports that this was what I saw, this is what I observed, and these are the things I am taking note of. This is what took place, especially when the likes of Raila Odinga came through from the Orange Party, and it worked smoothly.
Absolutely. Now, still speaking about Raila Odinga, we would like to x-ray the strengths and the weaknesses of each political presidential candidate. And because we have Raila Odinga on screen, we'll certainly start with him. We've given a few facts about Raila Odinga. And according to Ipsos statistics, yeah, we have the updates here. According to statistics, Raila Odinga has 51% of urbanites, males, older people who are 35 plus, who want to vote him. And we also have information that he's doing well in Coast, Lower Eastern, and Nyanza North, according to the statistics. Now, let's talk about the merits and the demerits of Raila Odinga's campaign. Let's start with you, Rickson. Talk to us about why would you think that people would want to vote Raila Odinga? What are the strengths of his campaign, and what is it that makes him popular?
Raila Odinga is an icon. Raila Odinga, most Kenyans view him at this election like it is a Mandela moment, because the probability of him winning is too high. Raila Odinga, let's look at Raila Odinga years back. When you say that he's the father of democracy, how true is that? It's very true. This man has been arrested several times trying to bring in the multi-party system. Right now in Kenya, like, everyone is enjoying that. Even the other contestants are enjoying that because of him. Many people had to pay the price for this to happen. He also was part of the making of the new constitution, which also all other candidates are enjoying. He has done tremendous things for this country. He has dedicated most of his life trying to see that Kenya is a peaceful place. And I think most Kenyans think that it is high time that we give him a chance. Because, okay, we've had issues in elections that he has participated in, and which are not verified anyway. But we have had issues that, okay, this happened. But at least at this time, with his manifesto that is launched this time, let's talk about the social policy, about giving 6,000 Kenya shillings to poor families, blah, blah. Yes, and he has also come out very clear to defend that by saying that we will get money that has been taken away by the corrupt leaders. And it is true. You find that it is very dangerous for a country where you find that very few individuals have a lot of money that they can't even finance the budget. They can even finance the budget of that country. They can pay the debts of that country in one thing. And how do they get this wealth? That's the question he's asking. Okay. Also looking at in comparison with his main opponent.
Yes.
Who is
William Ruto.
Yes, William Ruto, saying that he wants to bring in the bottom-up economic model. Fine. Despite the very juicy kind of manifesto you're launching, you are in office as the deputy president. What have you done as a deputy president? You cannot be standing in public and saying that I was denied a chance to deliver, but yet you are still there the best thing you could have done is to follow Mother Garuwa's way of resigning. If you feel like, why should you be in an office where you feel like you're irrelevant? Let's talk about these other competitors. Let's talk about Wajackoyah. Wajackoyah has an idea.
Okay.
Wajackoyah has an idea, a very brilliant idea. According to me, he's only trying to tell Kenyans that it is possible we can have economic strength. Number one, he believes in death sentence for the corrupt. Yes, Kenya is according to our constitution. Okay, according to our constitution, like we're trying to abolish that and so many things. But he's only trying to bring an idea that if we get back the money that has been stolen from our country's kitty, we can be able to have a good nation.
And when we get the people who have stolen this money, we sentence them to death?
That's according to him, yes.
That's it. You know what I'm going to say, Rickson? Just hold on to that thought. I know you do have David as well to cover. Let's just take a listen to what's going on right there on the screen as we can see live. Raila Odinga casting his votes.
I'm trying to wonder who he's voting for.
I wonder why you're wondering. Take a listen.
Okay, see the smile on his face, obviously.
Yeah.
One extra vote for Raila Odinga that's been cast there.
And he's done. He's done now. I'm sure he's done. Now they need to clear the area. Most importantly, you can see a lot of people struggling to get one or two from him. A lot. The electoral officers, everyone is indeed ensuring that the struggle is not that much, trying to clear the area so he could walk through. The crowd outside, I can say, is humongous.
They are clearing way for Baba.
It's
Baba.
It's Baba, yeah.
Baba.
I mean, Baba needs to go out. You can see the press. I cannot count the number of cameras and photographs that will be taken. Talk about the photographers as well. Well, he's done. He's done. And don't forget, George as well is should be done with his right now. One person we're looking to see is David as well. And you were about to talk about David as well, his strength and his weaknesses.
Yes, I was about to talk about
in this election.
Talk about David and now come to the weaknesses of Baba. David is a clergyman. He also has a following to those who subscribe to what he has to say. But I think even looking at the opinion polls, he has not been able to command that following that much.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Before you react to, giving us the demerits of Baba's campaign, let's talk to Bobby. Bobby, we are asking what are the strengths or the merits and the demerits of Raila Odinga's campaign?
Well, I'll sympathize with Mubarak, who said that Raila Odinga is an icon, larger-than-life personality in Kenyan politics. The role is played in especially opposition politics since his young days, tail ends of the Kenyatta 1 administration, but especially Moi administration, where he was detained on several occasions. He championed for the new constitution. So his track record in terms of the political history, the democratic development of this country needs no gainsaying. So he brings that to this campaign. He also brings a lot of experience, this being his fifth stab at this, with again the reasoning and theory and many of his supporters who believe that this position, this seat, has severally been stolen from him. 2007, many believe also 2013, and again 2017, that he did emerge the actual winner all those elections. And so, as Barack said, there are many who feel that perhaps this is his opportunity. And again, as you mentioned about his campaign, and I said earlier, him bringing on board Mother Garuwa was a masterstroke. Again, a lady who, in many ways, matches his sort of a principled way of approaching politics. I would say the demerit, and this ties to the point I was talking to about earlier when you asked about Ruto and the executing his office as deputy president.
Okay.
I think what hit Raila's campaign and him having to get on the campaign trail later in the day compared to Ruto was the fact that for the first since 2018 to about late 2020, he was concentrating on the constitutional review process through BBI, and around that time, Ruto was already on the ground campaigning as president. So we say Raila's campaign was in a certain way compromised by his involvement with BBI, which was not very popular, almost split the country 50-50. So, and then to a large extent, it was still speculated whether he was going to run or not. So it was towards the tail end of his, and especially when his side realized that BBI was not going to get to fruition, that he embarked on his presidential campaign endeavor. So he has been playing catch-up to William Ruto, who, for a large extent, and as I was mentioning, it was a blessing in disguise because he was also sidelined. Yes, many say he should have resigned, but he definitely had to enjoy the perks that come with the office. You know, his official deputy president residence is now dubbed the Hustler Mansion. He's held very many meetings. That's been, you know, enjoying the security detail around him, the networking within government and business. So I guess that's what made him not resign. But because he didn't have any official duties, many of those had been given to the internal security minister, Fred Matiang'i. So Ruto had time to hit the ground and campaign, whereas Raila Odinga spent a large part of his time between 2018 and 2020 dealing with the BBI, which failed after all. So I think, you know, at the end of the day, he did, especially with bringing in Martha Garuwa, his very categorical pronouncement eventually that he was going to run for the big office. And so I believe perhaps if he had started a few months earlier, would not have the close to call sort of situation that we have today because of Raila Odinga is the politics of this country. The fact that many Kenyans also believe perhaps this is his moment. But we have to wait, see how it goes. I mean, William Ruto is also quite formidable, and I think the fact that he's lasted this while, since 2018, with you know, sidelining from his political body and boss, President Kenyatta, and many machinations that came from the state and otherwise. Okay. Having his close associates, you know, sacked from prominent parliamentary and state offices and the likes. But here we are today. He's on the ballot, so we have to wait and see what happens.
Bobby, I know you have to go, but in 30 seconds, 40 seconds, do you think Baba's age, Raila Odinga, he's 77, do you think his age is working for him or against him?
I think Baba has managed to defy sort of dissociate his age. Yes, from the entire campaign. We've seen a few moments where I felt he's probably fatigued, probably because of his age. We know so in the past few years, Amy has had to go abroad for specialized treatment. But man, I mean, Raila Odinga really inspires even some of us young people. We don't know where he gets his energy because the way he's campaigning today, I think since 2013, I can't remember him taking a break. Many of us much younger than him, I don't think can command the same level of energy that this man does. So you can't talk about Baba and age.
All right. Thank you, Bobby and Kangi, for joining us. We know that you're still going to join us again. We will have to let you go now, but we look forward to having
Thank
you
you,
join us again before we wrap up this segment. I'll be speaking with Bobby and Kangi. He's the chairperson, Eastern Africa Center for Constitutional Development, and it's been great to hear his thoughts on this. Now let's move to Declan. Declan, we talked about. I'd like to ask you the same question I asked Bobby. I mean, conversations about the age of political leaders has been something that has been ongoing in Africa. What we find is that the older people are, they refuse to relinquish power. More recently, we've been seeing more young people advocating, to take positions in politics. Here in Nigeria, for example, we had the Not Too Young to Run movement that saw younger people gunning for political positions. Would you say that Raila Odinga's age is working for him or against him? And what are your thoughts on, having more younger people running for office in Africa?
So I think Raila Odinga's age is certainly working against him. If you factor in, first off, he's over 70. But if you look at the demographics of Kenya, a substantial number of voters, and I wish I had the exact figures, don't remember the advent of multi-party democracy in the late 80s and 90s. They don't remember or know anything about kind of the rise of NARC that I mentioned earlier, that basically replaced KANU as the ruling coalition. They don't remember the 2005 constitutional referendum that was so significant and that launched the ODM movement and party that Odinga's been kind of the head of. And their recognition around post-election violence is also a different, or at least influenced by contemporary dynamics. So his monumental achievements, which there are many, are in a completely different era than where we have voters today. And I think that doesn't play out as good for him as he wish it would.
Okay, I'll bring back to you as well. Of course, we've talked about this earlier. Let's talk about younger people in elections. Should we see more younger people? There have been arguments, people who say that the older you are, the more experience you've garnered over the years, especially for those who have already, been in power. In this case, Raila Odinga is not new to politics. He's been a prime minister in Kenya. So would you advocate that we should have more younger people? There are some people, however, I did speak a while ago with a political leader in Nigeria who said that younger people do not have the required experience, and that when a lot of them get into power, they're either abusing it, trying to use it as an avenue to amass wealth for themselves and their network. What are your thoughts on this?
I'll say that the young people across Africa, not just Kenya, are qualified to lead. I'll say that we have young people who can deliver more than the old people. But the question comes in, what do we have on the table right now? Right now, we have a system whereby the young people are pressed down, both economically, socially, etc. Let's say for a good example is like our elections here in Nigeria. You'll find that the young people, I've tried to talk to some of them, they'll tell you that it's difficult for them to go there because it's really expensive and to buy the nomination form, etc. The same case applies to Kenya. We have qualified young men who can lead the country, but they're not being given the opportunity. That's number one. Number two, also, I think it is time that we allow at least a leader who will come and clear that bush, in that any leader coming in, there's no avenues of maybe amassing a lot of wealth and stealing public funds. Because right now, and a survey was done in Kenya about young people and leadership positions, and most young people said they want to get into leadership so that they can become rich. Because we've seen most of the richest people in Kenya being politicians, but that should not be the case. We can even see on what we have on the plate right now. we have a young person running, but I think most of the older population and even the young population are against it because there are so many scandals aligned to that person involving billions of money. 1 billion is able to build so many health facilities.
These scandals are not just surrounding young people, though. We've seen a lot of these older people who are in office. In fact, when we get to the second half of this conversation, we're going to have a conversation on corruption,
Yes.
which is something that the current administration, has faced, and the incoming government will have to face. I mean, that's one of the demands of the Kenyan people: fight corruption. So it's not something that is peculiar
Yes.
to age.
Yes, but in regard to this election, I can say that this Raila Odinga, we look at his record and we look at the record of the opponent. Raila Odinga and William Ruto and William Ruto, they have had the time to serve in the government. Raila Odinga was the prime minister. Let us look at what did he do. He was the minister of roads. What did he do? William Ruto has been the minister of agriculture. What happened? You can read the story. William Ruto has been the vice president. What has happened? Like from everything. Everything is in the public domain. And this one gives so many people a thought that no, maybe if we go this way, we might not be safe. We might have a real state capture. They are the ones who are complaining about state capture, but state capture, according to me, it's inclined on a different direction from what they are saying. Yeah, because look at your salary. You have been a public servant all your years. Is it possible that you are able to amass that kind of wealth? You are every day seen in harambes. Harambes is the contribution gathering, giving away millions of money, of which, if you calculate in a month, it's too much. That's why we bring in the question of audits, auditing individuals, the source of your wealth. You will find that most of these other young people, you'll find that they are inclined towards that. But looking at this old man, despite the fact that he has been in the system for that long, maybe the scandals are because at the end of the day, you must have a scandal. Either is it true, is it true or not true? We don't know. Even the ones that you're talking about, William Ruto, we don't know if it's really true or not. But yes, we have a substantial kind of evidence. But look at both of them. Who has more weight when it comes to that?
All right. Rickson, we do have Declan who's still here with us. Let's take a look at the fourth candidate, the fourth presidential candidate, which we haven't spoken much about. And we're talking about David Nwari Waiga. Now, he likens himself to be the David, the proverbial, the biblical David. I mean, I can see all of us smiling. Well, it's just right to bring a smile on your face. Well, he says he's a shepherd boy, and he's looking to lead the sheep out of the slaughter. Possibilities of him getting more votes?
That's a good catchphrase. Shepherd boy leading the sheep out of slaughter.
So I'd like to say a few things on Mr. Wahiga. So in terms of him having any plausible pathway to victory, or having an influence over kind of the election outcome, it's highly remote. But there's a lot of positive I think we should draw out and talk about with regard to him. So I watched and had the pleasure of being in the audience for the presidential debates, and he was able to have 90 minutes of commercial-free attention to talk about things that he wanted to. And the thing that came across best in terms of his remarks was he talked an enormous amount about asset tracing, where he said, we have had the country pilfered. There's been enormous amounts of theft. This wealth is being stored in properties or bank accounts across the world. And what I'm going to do as president is I'm going to track this wealth down and repatriate it. So regardless of whether he was able to provide us a plan on how to do that, never before, according to my recollection, has Kenya ever had so much attention during prime time on the question of repatriating foreign assets and bringing that back in. And this is really the strength and advantage of having these, implausible third-party candidates taking the stage and being able to talk about what they think the most powerful office in the country ought to do. And so I think that deserves more attention than was provided. The second thing that I think is really important to mention about him, and he said this during the debate stage, he said it in media interviews, and he said it this morning after he finished voting. He said if he loses, he will concede the election without reservation. And it's much more difficult to get other candidates to admit to something like that, whether that's for president, whether that's Senate or governor, and those other things. And so those are two really strong points that I think should be said about Wahiga as we talk about his candidacy.
All right. Well, the Agano flag bearer seems to be a bit quiet, but like you said, he had a lot of airtime and talk time to highlight some of his points. But he also went ahead, what many have called to be throwing shades at the likes of Ruto and, of course, Odinga, when he said that he is going to be like the biblical David, slinging that stone to crush the Goliath of corruption. Pointing fingers to these two. Such statements, do you think it will indeed galvanize or move people to actually get him to vote?
So unfortunately, I just don't think he's got the platform or the name recognition or the national profile to draw votes. I think his contribution to this election and the democracy, in this moment has been to raise issues and conduct himself in a way that we would expect from national leaders. I don't see him pulling votes. I don't see him really registering in any meaningful statistical way in the final announcements. I don't know if there's any MCAs or MPs also in that ticket who have a plausible pathway toward winning their local races. So yeah, look, he's not a factor in terms of voting outcomes.
All right, Declan, thank you very much. We'd like to thank you for joining us so far. The conversation continues here. We're still looking at Kenya Decides 2022, and we've been joined by Rickson Mubarak, who is a political analyst, our guest in studio. Thank you once again, Rickson.
Thank you.
And we've been joined via Zoom by Declan Galvin, who is the head of Insights, Information and Intelligence at WS Insight. And we also had Bobby Nkangi, chairperson, Eastern Africa Center for Constitutional Development. We've been bringing you minute-by-minute updates here of the Kenya elections, and do not go anywhere because we are ready to do this all day.